human beings have bad theories about dating, right? Like, oh, the good ones will never like me. There are no good ones. I'm not that interesting. Men can't be trusted. They have all kinds of bad theories about life. And unfortunately, we know this from science that we prove our theories. We bias how we look at the world and how we perceive data, bias towards what we already believe to be true. So unfortunately, people, unbeknownst to them, are manifesting bad dates with their behavior, proving these theories that they have.
Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, the best place to shop for unique clothing, spiritual handcrafted jewelry, healing gemstones, and fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now, here's your host, Brett Larkin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Savannah Podcast. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, for sharing this time and space with me. Today's episode is all about love. This week we have professional coach Laurie Gerber on the show with us. She's been coaching individuals and groups for over 15 years. Her focus is on maximizing clients' ability to thrive across all areas of life, but she has a particular interest in love and relationships. Laurie spreads her message of empowerment through live events, one-on-one coaching, virtual courses, and she's appeared on numerous radio and TV shows such as MTV, A&E's The Marriage Test, The Dr. Phil Show, The Today Show, and she also saved her own marriage from the brink of divorce. So on Thursday's episode, she's going to be sharing all her tips on how to get into emotional, spiritual, and physical integrity in relationships for those of you who are listening who are in relationships or partnerships or marriages. But today we're focusing on dating. So you're going to want to absolutely continue listening if you're single. And even if you want to tune into Thursday's episode, a lot of her foundational framework for how she looks at love is explained in today's episode. So I'd really encourage you to listen to both. Today, Laurie's going to explain this 3 H's methodology she has for looking at love and dating and how you can also use this as a tool for greater self-awareness. She's also going to teach how this framework helps you uncover your inner dialogue and subconscious patterning when it comes to love. Laurie's going to go over about how you can be smart about dating online, how to find the one, often even making decisions in the first 3 dates, and how to know when you should abort a relationship if your head and heart are not aligned. There are fantastic tips in today's episode for anyone who is single or dating or just wants to learn more about this methodology, this framework that we'll then talk about in marriages and partnerships on Thursday. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you that you can support this podcast and the show by making a purchase on SavannahSpirit.com. If you're looking to enhance your intuition, which I think is very much related to love, I want you to check out Savannah Spirit's Lapis Lazuli Crystal Collection. Known to help improve your intuitive abilities, Lapis Lazuli is a powerful gemstone. It was worn by the ancient Egyptians for its various enhancing qualities. Savannah has such a beautiful jewelry collection with crystals that you can put around your home, carry with you, or also wear as crystal jewelry. So I encourage you to check all of that out and remember to use that discount code podcast30 for 30% off your first order. Now let's dive in to love with Laurie. Laurie, thank you so much for coming on the show today to talk to us about love.
Thank you for having me. I am delighted.
Okay, now when it comes to all things love, I know you have something called the 3 H's. Can you tell listeners what those are?
Yep, the 3 H's is our handy dandy little phrase to explain the voters inside of each of us. And the 3 H's stand for head, heart, and hoo-ha. Some people prefer to call hoo-ha the other head. Head, meaning how you think, what's practical, what makes sense. Heart, how you feel, how equal things are, how trusting things are, your connection, and hoo-ha, the chemistry, the sex appeal, the attraction.
Right, that X factor. Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
That thing you usually know pretty quickly when you meet someone.
So, and that's really important because for today's episode, we're focusing on people who are single, right? They haven't found the love of their life yet, or maybe they're in a relationship, but they know it's not the one. So before we even go deeper, I want to ask you, is there such a thing as the one, or do you think there's multiple people that you could potentially be with for the long haul and be happy with?
I certainly hope it's multiple people. I certainly hope, because it would be very hard to find one if it was only one. So I think there are many possible people who could be a good match for us, but the concept of finding the one is about finding your one. And many people forget that you only have to find one. For most people, one is enough to make them happy for the rest of their life. So that's actually good news.
Right. So that's reassuring. It's not like we're searching for a needle in the haystack here. There's, according to you, multiple people with whom we could find happiness. And then how does this head, heart, hoo-ha come into play when we're starting to date, when we're starting to evaluate potential soulmates?
Well, in pursuit of dating well, whether you're looking for your soulmate or even if you're looking for a good fling, by the way, this still applies. This applies to shopping for dresses. This applies to getting a house, a job, a career. Really everything requires paying attention to the three voters, the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha. So you always have to consult the three voices or the three voters, and they all have an opinion, and they're all trying to get your attention at all times or competing for dominance in your mind. And sometimes one of the H's is pretending like it's the only truth and the most important truth and trying to drown out the other H's.
Okay, cool. So I want to stop you for a second because I don't think I fully understood before when you said the voters. So like what I'm picturing now is like I'm sitting or I'm on a date or whatnot, and there's like three little people inside my head. And one is like holding the paddle for the head, like the logical side. One is for the heart, and the other is for kind of like that X factor, sex appeal, what you're calling the hoo-ha. And when we're on a date, it's like we're hearing inner dialogue from all these people.
You could almost think of it like lobbyists. There are lobbyists in your lobby trying to get your attention. And the head is going like, oh my God, this person would make your parents so happy. This person would, oh my gosh, they make a good living and they're so smart. And your head's like, come on, get the good guy. And then your heart's like, oh, I feel so connected. I trust this person. I don't care that, she's from whatever, the other side of the world and I live here. And the hoo-ha's like, let's just get in bed and see how it goes. Like, I don't care what happens. If the sex is good, it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll work out. So, they talk to you and they have real opinions about what's important and what's more important than the other. And unfortunately, what happens is that most of us sell out on one or two of the H's, believing we can't actually have all three. And if like for the listeners, think about your patterns, right? Just start to think about it. Which is the one you sell out on? Do you pick the smart one, the one that looks good on paper, but you have no connection to, or that you don't trust? Or do you pick the one you're totally madly in love with and, respect and admire and you're head over heels with, but totally impractical, like they can't afford their life or they're addicted to something or they're, what they want and what you want are so different. They want kids you don't, or vice versa. Or are you someone who just goes all in for hoo-ha and you don't mind that you don't trust the person or you don't respect the person or there's something about them that just totally is not okay for you?
Right. So if you've had a string of really passionate relationships, always like super high passion, but again, there wasn't that trust there, that sense of safety, it didn't really make a lot of sense, that would be you're someone who the hoo-ha voice is always winning. Gotcha.
Exactly. And some people even most people have a very clear pattern of which one dominates and which one gets sold out on. But some people also don't even know that, don't even find anything out about the people they're dating. Like they're honestly surprised 7 months later when they realize there's no chemistry or it's never going to work because you don't want the same thing or, you can't really trust the person. This is the kind of thing that we see all the time is people breaking up and being like, oh, I should have known, or I always did know. When what we're trying to do is when you're earnest about finding the one, let's say you're a 30-something-year-old woman or you're a man who's ready to settle down or whatever you are, when you are really trying to find the one, you've got to be more smart more efficient about how you go about dating, because you could spend so much time and heartache and money and attention on something that just you actually really on some level know isn't going to work out from the beginning.
The yoga practice and the meditation practice is all about getting awareness of the voices in our head, right? Realizing that we are not our thoughts. And what I like about what you're offering here is you're sort of providing a framework for when you're on a date or when you're in the love sort of department of your life, that you can really hone in on these voices in your head to gain awareness by using this heart, head, hoo-ha way to sort of categorize the voices so you can see them instead of thinking that's the truth. Like when you hear that voice in your head, like, he's perfect, my mom would love him. It's like, okay, we're going to take that voice into consideration, but I need to step back, elevate my consciousness, gain greater awareness, and maybe like, how does this work? So say let's just go with that example. You end up in kind of relationships where it looks great on paper, but then it doesn't work out, right? Because your heart and the hoo-ha isn't in it. Are you supposed to cultivate trying to listen to those other two voices more? Like, how do you get people to sort of balance out?
Okay, well, first things first, you have to become aware, just like you said, of exactly what your patterns are. And I am amazed to find how many people think they know their patterns and they actually don't. So we have all of our clients literally make a chart. You can use Oak Tag, you can use Google, you can use Excel, you can use whatever you like, but we literally have people list in writing a chart of all of their past major loves. On the left-hand column is all of the names, and across the top is how long were you with them? How hot was it? In other words, hoo-ha rating, scale of 1 to 10. How did you get together? How did you break up? Who broke up with whom? And was there any lying or cheating? So it becomes like this grid of your history. And it is not the same when you write it down. It's not the same as thinking about it. So the first thing we do is arm you with complete clarity on your top 3 negative patterns. Or maybe it's only one, So it could be, I go for what looks good on paper, but I think I shouldn't care about hoo-ha. But then I get screwed later because I really can't get it up for the person. Okay, so you know your pattern. Now you can solve for your pattern when you're dating. Then we have our clients literally look at all 3 H's and come up with their criteria, meaning what's the most important stuff to you for head, for heart, and for hoo-ha. And it's not the same for everybody, as we know. That's why it does require hunting or shopping or whatever analogy you like. It does require looking for your one because not everybody's a match. I really do think of it like shopping for a new outfit or shopping for a home. Like you're going to have to look at a bunch. You're going to have to try some on. You're going to have to go look around and ask questions or else there's no way to know if it's a good match. And it's good, honest work to do that. So to prepare you for doing that effectively, just like you would if you were going to look at a home you wanted to buy or a business you wanted to buy, you'd make a list of questions based on your most important criteria. Like when I came to live in New York City, I didn't care about the age of the building I live with, but I did care if it was close to a subway. So, like when I looked for a mate, I cared about whether or not they wanted to have kids, but I didn't really, and I cared about living in New York City, but I didn't really care if they were balding. I didn't care, right? Some things I care about, some things I don't care about. Make sense?
It does. I want to get really clear on how this criteria list is working so listeners at home can really visualize this in case they want to do this work themselves. So you're writing criteria for each of the 3 H's for the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha?
You got it. And I think everyone should take out a pen and paper right now or get their computer because I'm going to literally tell you what you should think about and you're going to pick your most important things.
Okay. I think that would be good. Give us some practical examples of like what I put under head. Like, do I put like, he's an MIT brilliant scientist or, and then before we go on, what I think is also important that we make clear for people is that these 3 things, are you then going to weight them equally?
I'll tell you, I'll give you the punchline.
If I'm jumping ahead, you can stop me.
No, it's fine. It's good to tell people. What we're going to do is what we are trying to get our clients to do is take 3 dates to get to know if someone's in or out, if someone's worth continuing to give your time, attention, money, blah, blah, right? So we say if you're earnestly looking for the one, you get 3 dates to figure it out, which means you have to be pretty intentional about learning about someone and assessing how well the match, how well you think the match is going. So scale of 1 to 10, 10 is the top rating, 1 is the bottom rating. You got to be at 8 or above in all 3 H's to make it past the 3rd date. So you get 3 dates to get them all up to an 8, and you have to ask all your questions and get to know the person enough to be able to tell. Right? 6.5 is I don't know. I don't know is a 6.5. That's not acceptable. We're actually trying to train you to find out what you need to find out so you can move things along. If you don't care about moving things along, if you're not trying to find the one, you can slow it all down. If you're not trying to have sex with people quickly, you can slow it all down. But we really recommend not going on 6, 7, 8, 9 dates and then figuring it out because then it's harder to break up. You're more attached. It's just harder. It's much easier to break up after 3 dates than after 9, as I'm sure everybody knows.
Right. No, and this is great because it's almost like you're game show-ifying, if that's a word, like how this works. But it's important because otherwise, I mean, we're never taught any of this in school, right? I mean, even those of us who, have a really deep spiritual practice, like no one ever lays out for you, like whether it's in yoga class or university, like how to do this dating thing. I mean, it's never really spelled out. So the fact that you guys are offering up a very clear structure for people, I think is really nice. So I want you to now give us these like kind of practical examples of what people would write for maybe their head, heart, and hoo-ha, if you're willing to share.
Perfect. Okay. So like you said, education or status might be something that's important to somebody in regards to head, but whether or not you want to have kids, or if you have kids and they like your kids or want your kids, or if you both want to have kids or you both don't want to have kids, that is huge for head. Head really cares about the basic logistics of what your life is going to look like and does it mesh with the other person's life. Same thing with job, right? If one person's job takes them traveling all the time and the other person wants to be at home, and hanging out at home together, that is not going to be compatible. Politics and religion. Those are two things that the head can really feel very strongly about. Okay, one way or the other just isn't going to work. Like it was important to me, for example, to raise my kids Jewish. I didn't have to marry a Jew, but I wanted to raise my kids Jewish. And that was something that was just an important thing for me. And so, that's what was on the top of my list. Some people feel very strongly about those types of things. Some people really don't. Please don't think you should feel strongly about anything you don't feel strongly about. It's better to have less things that you must have than to have more, but you have to tell the truth about what you must have. If you love vacationing, if you love skiing or you love snorkeling and they hate it, is that a deal breaker for you? Food and eating. If the person's not a healthy eater or the person, is a wine lover and you're trying to be sober, right? Like there's certain things that could just be a no in terms of workability and practicality and how things work. You don't have to sacrifice basic stuff. If you're allergic to cats and they have a cat, right? You don't have to sacrifice basic lifestyle, workability in order to find love. You really could hold out for the person whose life fits with your life in the basic, most important ways.
So Laurie, this criteria list isn't a wish list. It's really like, these are my non-negotiable, or these are what's really important to me.
This is what I recommend. You have 5 to 10 things that are really important to you. Like for some people, it's like they have to make their own living. It's just like, it's just thing right. They know from their history, right? If I can't be carrying someone else. For some people it would be, they have to carry me and want to carry me, right? That could be someone's truth, is that like, no, I'm not going to work. That's possible that's someone's truth. And it would be so good to know that and be honest about that and be shopping in the right department, not lying. And then surprise later, guess why we're divorced. So I recommend having 5 to 10 things that are just kind of like really important to you, criteria. And then you can have deal breakers. You can have things that are just absolutely non-negotiable. Like I have to have someone who will do a prenup, or I have to have someone within 50 miles of me, or I have to have someone who's of this political persuasion or this spiritual persuasion, or kids. Kids could be a deal breaker. I mean, if my husband, there were certain deal breakers for me. New York City, raising the kids Jewish, having kids. That's pretty much it. That was like deal breakers. So good luck. I found someone who that was fine with. that wasn't a problem. And how much easier is life when you are not fighting over basic stuff that makes life work both ways? Because you want to know their list too. It's not just about getting your list. You want to know their list.
Right. So people are doing this work at home. This criteria list is really about those things. And it's not so much like he went to Harvard specifically, or like getting into all this like nitty gritty wish list kind of thing. It's really just about like your basic criteria and the deal breakers.
What's important to you. And I really do warn against too much overthinking what you think you need or wishing, because most people want to feel loved, want to feel secure, want to feel equal, want to feel challenged, want to feel compelled, want to feel sexy, want to feel excited. Like it's not really so different what everyone's looking for. Everybody's looking for a feeling. What particular characteristics fulfill that or lead to that? There should be a lot of flexibility in that, but not endless flexibility. There's a lot, like there's certain things that are just non-negotiable, and chemistry is not something you can even explain. Like that's something that you just have to be honest and call the shot on.
Right. So before we go there, tell me about the heart criteria list. Like what are things that would be in that category?
So heart is really about how it feels, right? The level of connection, the level of intensity, the communication style. Like, does it feel equal? Does it feel balanced? Is there any kind of power dynamic that doesn't feel good or does feel good? Do you admire the person? Do you respect what they are up to? Do you love their dreams? Do you root for what matters to them? Right? Like I had one client who was dating someone who was in the e-cigarette business, and like on paper, he looked great. He had a living. He was, personally didn't smoke. He was like, there were many things that hit her list, but she's an environmentalist and she just doesn't believe in that industry. She couldn't get over that. So that was a disconnect for her on a level of just not being proud of what he wanted and what he stood for. The level of independence you guys want from each other. If one person really likes a lot of time together and the other person doesn't, or likes to give attention in a particular way and the other person doesn't, or one likes more listening or talking and the other one really doesn't, those kind of imbalances can be very problematic down the line. And again, if we're hot for someone, sometimes we will tolerate that. Or if they look great on paper, we will tolerate that or say it'll get better, or even it'll get better if we have sex. And that's not such a reliable theory. So it's better if those things are feeling good and matching up even at the very beginning when it's supposed to be great.
And then what does the hoo-ha criteria list look like? I'm very curious.
Well, the obvious, right? Like, do they look the way are they your type, right? But again, type can change. I think a lot of people are thrilled to find out that they actually don't need tall, dark, and handsome or blonde or, whatever they think they need. It is more about chemistry than actually how somebody looks.
So for this one, is the list simple? Is it just like the chemistry's there or not? Or are people writing down more?
No, you could really have like, they need to be, no more than X number of pounds overweight, right? Or there could be a height issue, or there could be there could be something that you have on the hoo-ha list that really is true for you. I'm pretty sure I really needed to have a strong chest. It didn't need to look a particular way. I didn't care hair or no hair, but like, there was something I was looking for that was like, it just felt, I could feel it in myself that there was this experience I wanted to have hoo-ha wise. It could be about confidence. It could be about the type of sexual stuff you like, or the amount of talking the other one is willing to do about sex, right? Obviously, if you like something kinky or you want to have an open relationship, that goes under hoo-ha. That goes under you better find someone who likes what you like. I mean, you don't have to, but we know how it turns out if you don't. So we really encourage you to have a straight conversation with yourself about it, so you know what your deal breakers are about that. And then but the biggest pitfall for people is either they go too far in pursuing a relationship based on chemistry that they know isn't going to work out. That becomes almost like an addiction, or they ignore it entirely, saying it's shallow, and then they end up really unhappy. So that's usually the mistake people make with hoo-ha that we want to try to help people avoid.
Okay, gotcha. So we're armed with our list of criteria. Now, what are your tips on how to navigate those first few dates to really find the one quickly?
Okay, well, what your goal is on those first 3 dates is, and even if you're looking online, right, you're always looking online through the lens of the 3 H's, or in your, when you meet someone at a party, or when you're wherever you are, you could look at everything through the 3 H lens. It's actually very helpful in organizing your thinking. So if you're looking online, you want to obviously find something that speaks to each of the 3 H's. And one really important warning we have for people, if you're seriously looking for the one, if you're trying to be efficient, if you don't care about being efficient, you can totally ignore this. But if you are trying to be efficient, one of the best strategies we give people in dating is to have a video call with the person before you meet them live. This is like the single most effective way of ruling out people who will never make it above a 6 on your 3H criteria. Okay? People don't like to do it. They'd rather have a date than not have a date. They know that if they have the video call, they may not get the date because either that person will back away or they will want to back away. People find it awkward. It weeds out the riffraff. So a Google FaceTime, Hangout, Skype, whatever you like, is a huge tip for how to make sure you never go on a dud date again.
That is a huge tip, especially because, so many people are dating online. I mean, I haven't dated in a while, but I mean, I feel like that is the norm now for so many people out there.
that's where people are. So that's where you should be shopping.
But it's interesting because even though it's all online, I mean, it's just like people are just looking at the profiles or swiping in the apps. They're not actually connecting on video chat. And Laurie, is it important that it's video chat as opposed to a phone call?
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us why.
You guess. Yes.
Well, I mean, I get it. It's like so you can see them, but it's like so you can suss out if there's some chemistry, right? From
Absolutely.
the get-go.
You cannot suss the chemistry through a phone call. You cannot suss what they've lied about on their profile from a phone call. You will immediately find out their height, their weight, their look, their vibe, how awkward or not awkward. Like you're going to find out everything from that. And plus how serious they are. Because if they're not serious, they're not going to show up to that. And if you're not looking for something serious, then you don't have to worry about that.
Right. But if you are, you can see how this would be a huge time saver because instead of meeting for drinks and, that's like an entire evening of your life where you could have spent with friends or, doing other things,
doing your
yoga if you're me.
Exactly. And here's the real dark side of it all. Human beings have bad theories about dating, right? Like, oh, the good ones will never like me. There are no good ones. I'm not that interesting. Men can't be trusted. They have all kinds of bad theories about life. And unfortunately, we know this from science that we prove our theories. We bias how we look at the world and how we perceive data, bias towards what we already believe to be true. So unfortunately, people, unbeknownst to them, are manifesting bad dates with their behavior, proving these theories that they have. So if you have a rule for yourself that you will not go on a date unless you have had a video call with the person and all three H's are happy with the result of that call, you will by nature stop proving your bad theories.
This is brilliant. I love it. Okay. Yes, this is amazing. So step one for our tips of how we navigate the first few dates is to not even go on the date until we do the video chat. I mean, assuming we're dating online and whatnot, which I think a lot of people are. So maybe either say we met the person at a party or we did the video chat and that all checked out and now we're at the restaurant or the bar, wherever we're meeting or the yoga studio. What happens next?
Okay. So you've vetted well. So you're excited for your date. So your job is to be fabulous on your first date. Always give a good first date, just like you'd always give a good interview. Bring your questions, bring your topics, but it's not an inquisition. It's a fun, you got to talk about something. Why not talk about what's important to you and ask them to talk about what's important to them and answer their questions. Do it in public, right? You don't want to go anywhere private for the first 3 dates. You want to do a drink or coffee.
And Laurie, I'm just going to ask because I feel like you might have some sneaky tips for people. I mean, how do you make it not sound like an interview? Because at this point, it's like we've made our criteria list. We're going in. There's a lot of information we're trying to obtain. So, I mean, what tips do you give people to get the information they need but still seem like relaxed and pleasurable to be around?
I mean, I really hate to say this because it seems so elementary, but if somebody's attracted to you, they're going to want to answer your question. They're going to want to do whatever they have to do to eventually get you in bed. Right? Like if the hoo-ha factor is high enough, your questions are going to seem like the funnest flirting ever. If the hoo-ha factor is not good or the head factor is not good, like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. She wants to have a baby this year. Forget it. Right? Like, or this isn't going anywhere. He's still an alcoholic, or whatever it is. Right? So if the head and the hoo-ha are upset, you're going to it's not going to go well. But if all three are happy, if the hoo-ha's happy, the head's happy, and the heart's happy in that date on both sides, you'll spend 3 days together asking and answering questions. You understand? It's only with not the one that questions seem like an inquisition.
Right. So people shouldn't even have to worry about that.
Yeah. When you only need one person to be your one. And if somebody doesn't like your questions, they're not your one.
Good point.
You understand? Like, it's like our questions are us. They are what's actually important to us. And if that person doesn't like what's important to you or the fact that you want to get to know them, they're probably not your one.
Okay, this is wonderful. So what other tips on these first few dates do you have for us that you want to share?
Okay, so you're basically having a ball, sparkling, twinkling, engaging, and asking and answering questions, enjoying life. At the end of the date, you're going to give yourself a little quiz on head, heart, and hoo-ha. Do I feel connected to this person? Do I want to know more? Do I want to kiss them? Not do I need to kiss them right now, but would I want to? Could I imagine it? If you're repulsed by the idea of kissing, even on the first date, abort the mission. It's been lovely meeting you. Best of luck. Best of luck is my catchphrase for if you say best of luck, people will understand you are saying no, thank you. Obviously, if they ask you out again, you can say, I'm so sorry. I just don't think this is a good match. And you can even tell them why if you want to. I think it's nice karma sometimes to tell people why. Again, if it's on the first date, most people would not be offended, right? Because it's not like you got attached. You're like, oh, that's not my type. Or, oh, I could never be with someone who sells cigarettes. Or, oh, I just think our politics are too different. Or, oh, I just really want to live in New York. Or, like whatever it is. Great. Fine. Next. No baggage. No upset. If you want to see the person again because you want to kiss them, you feel connected, you like what you're hearing, then you can say something cute like, if you're the female especially, if you asked me out again, I'd say yes, which is a very cute way of telling somebody they're going to get a yes if they ask you out again, giving them full permission to ask you out again. In that moment, you will find out what they think of you, right? You will find out how you rated on their 3H scale because they'll go, okay, great. Can we go out again? Or they'll go, what? Or they'll excuse themselves or whatever, or they'll tell you the truth, right? And that is the moment of truth where you tell the truth about your 3Hs and you throw the ball to the other person and give them a chance to have their truth.
And what's great here is if they don't want to go out with you again, you're not even that offended because it's just we're within the first 3 dates here.
That's the point.
Which leads me to my next question, because I want to touch on this before we let you go, which is how far in your opinion, should people be going sexually along the way? Like, at what point is it right to take the relationship to the next level, to the physical level, right, in this process?
Well, the other reason we like the 3 dates rubric is because we have the concept of by the end of the 3rd date, there's one question you absolutely must ask and have answered by dessert, which is, are we looking for the same thing? So it's totally fine for 3 whole dates to just be flirting and bantering and having fun and getting to know you. But by the 3rd date, you want to say, look, I'm looking for serious long-term. I'm not saying I need that commitment now, but is that what you're looking for? Or listen, I'm just having fun right now. I'm dating people. I'm just recovering from a long-term relationship that didn't go well. What are you looking for right now? Whatever your truth is. We call it, fling or real thing. Not that flings are bad. Flings are great as long as you're being honest about them. So by the end of the 3rd date, we want you to be in alignment on, do you want the same thing? And we want you also to still be having so much fun that you'll answer that question honestly and invite an honest answer. And then if they don't line up, abort the mission. This is where, again, people force it. They want to have sex to try to get the answer they want, or they hear the honest answer, but they don't like it. So they try to change it, or they don't give the honest answer to that. Somebody could pretend like they just want to fling and they really want the real thing, or vice versa. So this is a very important conversation to have by the 3rd date. We do not recommend meeting somewhere that is out of the public eye, like i.e. somewhere where you could fool around or have sex, until you have had that conversation and aligned on that you want the same things. So understandably, after the 3rd date, if the 3 H's are still all at 8 and above, they seem to like you too, you've aligned that you're looking for the same thing, then you can take the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th date, 8th date, if you're comfortable, to somewhere more private where sex could happen. Now, I will say this, nobody ever regretted waiting to have sex. People often regret having sex too soon. Nobody ever regrets waiting. So even though I said, as of the 4th date, you're sort of free according to us, we do not recommend rushing. In fact, what we recommend is that, especially if you think you're going to get more attached once you have sex, you wait until you're in a monogamous relationship, if that's what's important to you. You wait until that moment when you have declared yourselves monogamous, when you've had the talk about STDs, when you've talked about what you each like, when you feel really comfortable with each other, when you trust each other, because that's when having sex will help the relationship, not hurt the relationship. And if it doesn't go well, you will have grounds on which to talk about it, communicate about it, make it better. And then also, if it ends up that you break up, it will be less painful.
Laurie, what do you say to people who say, well, people change? Right? Like, this seems so cut and dry. Like, what do you say to clients or people who work with you and they say, well, I think he'll change, or I think I'll change, or I think, because we all are. I mean, I like to think it's funny because on the one hand, I do think people really don't change. On the other hand, I do think we're all like evolving spiritual beings. So we are evolving. So, I mean, what's your take on that?
My take is that the relationship history assignment will give you most of what you need to know about that. And if that doesn't give you enough, you can look at your parents' love lives and your parents' relationships and their relationship history. And it will pretty much show you the patterns you want to avoid. And a lot of people have the pattern of, I'm going to fix this person so I don't have to deal with my stuff and I can feel superior and I can, be busy fixing them. Right? A lot of people have that pattern, and that is not a healthy pattern. That is a codependent pattern. So yes, people can change, but you have to decide whether you want that to be your job. And if you're, if you're looking for love and you're looking to find the one and you really do have millions of choices, you might want to pick the person who's like about equal to you, right? Like who's like in your league, who isn't a fixer upper, right?
Right.
It's like,
right. It's like if you have that patience and you want to play that, like the long game, right, of waiting or see if they change it, you're welcome to do that. It's just like not what you'd
why would you?
recommend.
Right? You can smell the bad theory, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're like, I can't have it all. But I really believe, that there are leagues and that people are in different leagues and people can change leagues on purpose. But whatever league you're in right now is where you are. Like whatever you can afford in the way of an outfit or a house is what you can afford. And there's dignity in finding one you can afford. Like there's dignity in dating at your level.
And when you say like at your level, you mean that for you, that the head, heart, and hoo-ha are all where you want it to be. It's not like you should be compromising on any of these things ever. Is that right?
Well, my one caveat is there are people who inflate, like who inflate themselves, right? Like who want someone who's rich and successful and handsome and daring and loving and care, but they are not, right? So there really is, there's finding the most amazing house in your price range, right? So the house I bought when I was 25 is not the same house I bought when I was 35, but the houses met my 3H criteria at each stage. I just could afford a different kind of house at each stage. Does that make sense? So yes, your 3Hs all have to be an 8 or above, but you have to make sure that your Hs are honest.
Right, like your 8 is a realistic 8 for where you're at right now in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's what I wanted to make sure we were clear on, that it wasn't like of these 3 categories, like it's okay if one ends up taking over or one's not being great. Because, I think that is a really empowering message to share with people, because so many of us are told like, well, you can't have it all, right? Like in life or in love, like there's always going to be something that, just doesn't work for you with the person. And I mean, again, maybe with little things, but I think what you're saying with like these big things, like your deal breakers, your big criteria, you really can have it all.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has a goodie bag that includes bad traits, bad habits, things that aren't awesome. My husband happens to not like to change his clothes. He's not very fashionable. He, spits his phlegm out in the garbage. Like there's things he does that I do not like, but guess what? They match the things that I do that he doesn't like quite well. Like I don't like changing my clothes either. I have annoying, disgusting habits too. So
right.
our goodie bags are well matched, right? They're equal. They're not the same, but they are essentially equal. So we're in each other's league quite nicely. So there's a balance and equality that's really healthy.
This is a perfect segue because on Thursday, Laurie is coming back and she's going to share all her beautiful knowledge and wisdom with us, for specifically those of us who are coupled up. So today we're focusing on those of you who are dating and getting you all her great tips on how to date more efficiently. But on Thursday, we're actually going to switch gears and talk about how to make the relationship you're in sweeter, smoother, more conscious. I'm really excited to share Thursday's episode with you, so make sure to tune back in. So much love from my heart to yours. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.